So, what do we know? His desire to do good to his created being, that he has a black point inside. You see it? This is the point, and this is the desire. He created the kli from the black point, and this is Bchinat Shoresh, this is Bchinat Aleph, the root and the first discernment. This kli is filled with light, and we call it Bchinat Chokhmah. From the desire being filled by the light, a response came, that this desire wants to resemble the filling in it, and wants to bestow. That is the second discernment, Bchinat Bet. From Bet, from wanting to bestow, starts feeling that she has nothing to bestow. She's empty. She can't without the light of Chokhmah. She's just a will to receive. And then Bchinat Gimel comes out. So half is in bestow and half is reception. From it, Bchinat Daled comes, which is entirely decides that I'm receiving, entirely receiving and enjoying the light just as if it's in Bchinat Shoresh. Meaning Daled does exactly what's in Shoresh, the thought of creation. But when it finishes this action, which are all called four phases of direct light and their root, she feels that she cannot be in it, because there inside she has a feeling that she is opposite from the host, and she has a rejection from her own state. That state is called Tzimtzum Aleph, the first restriction, and she completely empties out from the light because that feeling of shame is worse than the feeling of pleasure. It's greater than the feeling of pleasure, that it just becomes unbearable suffering. In this way, this kli empties out and remains empty. Remains empty. Up to here it's clear, right? No questions. None. Good. Afterwards she decides, still, how can she connect these two ends? That on one hand, she feels a big desire to receive. On the other hand, she feels that in the reception there's huge suffering. On one side, there's a big impulse from the host that she takes. On the other hand, she can't receive and take, meaning she has a problem with the host, that she wants to do it for herself and for the host, and she can't. All of this information comes and connects to one solution, that I reject. Bchinat Dalet says this. These are Gimel Bchinot, Shoresh, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, the root, and 1, 2, 3. And this is Bchinat Dalet, the fourth discernment. Then Bchinat Dalet says, I will keep the tzimtzum, the restriction. I won't receive for myself, but for the host, that it has nothing to do with reception. It's all giving. I'm receiving as much as I can in order to bestow. And then what I have here above will be called Rosh, and as much as I receive is called Toch, and where I can't receive, that's called Sof. This is how I divide myself. So I have 3 Bchinot, and this is the fourth one.
וכך נעשה אצלנו מה שנקרא פרצוף.
And here we get what we call a
זה
partzuf.
המבנה
A partzuf is a structure
רוצה
where the guest
להיות דומה
wants
לבעל
to
שהוא
resemble
עצמו
the
משהו.
host. He builds something of himself called partzuf, like such an expression, such a presentation.
עד כאן ברור?
Until here, is it all clear?
אז יש כאן
Good.
ראש, תוך,
So we have Rosh, Toch, Sof, Partzuf.
מלכות אין סוף.
Just Malchut of Ein Sof. This is what she's about to do.
ואחר כך אנחנו
What happens afterwards? We've learned that we have
אותה הפעולה.
the same action that Malchut of Ein Sof performs, that if we make it
כף, למה כף?
into a line, why a line? Because she wants to work according to the line, according to the masach she has.
ולכן היא מחלקת את
That's why she divides herself
ראש
into Rosh
ולתוך
and
ולסוף.
Toch and Sof.
שבראש
That in the Rosh she thinks, how can she
לקיים את עצמה, כן?
keep herself in the Toch?
היא תקבל
How she will receive in order to give contentment to the Creator, and in the Sof,
לא תוכל.
as much as she won't be able to do it.
זה בעצם מה שקורה.
That is actually what is happening.
שיש כאן עוד תוספת.
The thing is that there's an addition here, that after she receives
את האור,
the light,
אז נשאר העודף האור.
there
ועודף
is an abundance left
עליה,
of the light. And that extra light that she can't receive works on her
ומגיע
and comes to
ללחוץ,
putting pressure on this border.
לבטל את הגבול.
He wants to cancel this border, this limit. It's called Ol Mekif, surrounding light.
שאור מקיף הזה הוא
This Ol
גדול
Mekif
מאוד.
is a huge light,
אור מקיף
Ol Mekif,
ואור פנימי
and Ol Pnimi, an inner light,
זה האור אינסוף.
equals the light of Ein Sof.
ולכן הפרצוף הזה
That's why this Partzuf that received in order to bestow purifies,
מזדחך.
it purifies back.
בדרך הזדחכות יש
And during the purification, there's all kinds of phenomena.
וכשהוא מגיע בחזרה לפדרוש,
When it returns to Pederosh,
יש לו כבר רשימו חדש,
there's already a new Rishimo.
שאם
That if
כאן רשימו
there was a Rishimo
אחרי צמצום ב'
after the second restriction, Simtzum Bet, there was Dalid of Itlapshut and Dalid of Aviyut,
זהו עשה כאן חשבון.
and here there was a calculation of Dalid. So when he comes here, he has a calculation on Dalid Gimel, because he felt
כבר לעבוד
that he can't work
אותו כוח
with that same force of persistency, of rejection, like he had before.
ואז הוא עושה זיווג דאקה,
And he performs a zivug da'aka on a different level.
הוא יורד,
According to that different level, he descends to the degree of Gimel,
כי זה דרגת ד',
because this is the degree of Dalid.
זה דרגת ד',
This is the degree of Dalid,
זה אביות,
of Aviyut.
אז הוא יורד לדרגת
So he descends to the degree
ג'
of
דאביות,
Gimel of Aviyut.
והוא עושה כאן זיווג דאקה,
And performs a zivug da'aka and builds
אור החדש,
the new reception of light
ברשימות,
on the reshimot of Dalid Gimel, as we were saying.
המקום הזה נקרא חזה,
This place is called Chazeh,
לעומת המקום הקודם,
compared to the previous place, which was called Peh.
נעשה, נכתוב כאן פה.
Here, I'll write it here, pe.
ואז נעשה זיווג דקה, אבל
Then a zivug da'aka happens, and the second partsuf expands until the general tabu,
מפני שלמטה אין לו כוח.
because below he has no forces. The light of Chokhmah cannot go there.
אז יש לנו כאן הבחנות.
So here we had the sermons called Rosh.
ראש
Rosh
ותוך
and Toch
וסוף
and Sof
של פרצוף
of the partsuf Galgalta.
גלגל.
Galgalta.
והלאה
And
יש לנו פרצוף אב.
next we have partsuf Ab.
כן? אב מזדחך
Ab purifies,
בחזרה,
back
בדרוש,
to Pederosh,
עם רשימות
with the Reshimot
ב'
Gimel Bet.
ויורד לפי רשימו ג' ב'
And the Reshimot Gimel Bet descends to the Chazeh
ומתפשט מחזה ולמעלה.
and expands from Chazeh below and above, and Zivug Da'aka'a, and the Partsuf
קרא
comes here, which will be called
שיקרא פרצוף
Partsuf
סג.
Sag.
הרשימות ג' ב'
The Reshimot are Gimel Bet,
גם כן עד הטבור הכללי.
also until the general Tabul.
וכשמגיע לטבור, מהטבור
And when it comes to the general Tabul,
להזדחך
it starts purifying.
ו... כשמתחיל להזדחך,
When it purifies,
רשימות
it comes to the Reshimot
ב' א',
Bet Aleph.
אבל כאן זה ג',
But here it's Gimel Bet.
אז באמצע כאן
So here in the middle,
רשימות ב'
the Reshimot
ב',
of Bet Bet,
זאת אומרת, כאן
meaning
יש הזדחכות הפרצוף
there's a
מאוחרת.
special purification of the Partsuf, because the light of Chokhmah is gone, that from the beginning of creation there was light of Chokhmah, and here it disappears in Nekudot Desag.
ואז
And then the
הפרצוף הזה הוא
this Partsuf descends completely
למטה
below
טאבור.
the Tabul.
עד הטאבור הוא יכול להיות, ואפילו
It can be till the Tabul and even below it.
זה פרצוף נקודות דסק. פרצוף בינה
This is the Partsuf of Nekudot Desag, the Partsuf of Bina.
מסוגל.
And then it is able to bestow the light of Chokhmah,
חסדים, סליחה.
sorry, the light of Chasadim, in addition of light of Chasadim, to
לסוף הגלגלתא,
the Sof of the Galgalta,
חסדים,
Bet Chasadim, the light of mercy,
ולקבל משם,
and receive from there
ולקבל משם, ד' אביות,
Dalet of Aviyut.
שזה אביות. ואז מתוך זה,
And then from that,
הכלים האלו, שהם
these vessels that are Keter, Chokhmah, Binah, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, These vessels
מתחלקים באמצע
are divided. In the middle of Tiferet, they divide into two,
שכלים של כתר חוכמה בינה הם נקראים גלגל.
where the vessels of Keter Chochma Binah are called Galgalta, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet are called Enaim,
והחצי הזה תפארת
and this half of Tiferet
זה נקרא אוזן,
is called Ozen,
ונהי
Nehi is called Chotem,
זה נקרא פה.
and Malchut is called Peh. So we have Galgalta, Enaim, and Achap.
כך מתחלק הפרצוף, שפרצוף הזה
In this way, the Partsuf is divided, and it's called Nekudot,
בשק.
the Sag, Nekudot of Sag.
החלק, הגבול שמחלק ביניהם הוא עיקרי.
The border, boundary that separates them is called Parsa, separates vessels of bestowal,
וכלים
and vessels of reception.
זהו. עד כה למדנו.
We've learned everything this far.
יש לנו אביות מבחינת ד' מתערבת למטה,
Because we have the view of the coarseness of Bchina Dalet that gets mixed up down below, we get the second restriction, Tzimtzum Bet, where Malchut rises up to the place of Chazeh, and here you get the second restriction.
מה זה צמצום ב'
What is the second restriction? It means that in this area down here, we should not work with vessels of reception. We should not receive lights here in order to bestow, because it will certainly be in order to receive. Vessels of reception, and they don't have a sufficient screen in order to receive, in order to bestow. To bestow, in order to bestow, we have vessels above the parsa. Below the parsa, those are vessels to receive in order to bestow. There's not enough strength, so they don't do it. Therefore, there is a restriction on these vessels called the second restriction, Tzimtzum Bet.
זה בעצם מה שלמדנו.
That's what we learned, really.
ועדיין זה נקרא פרצוף
And all of this is called Partzuf Nekudot de Sag, the Partzuf of Nekudot of Sag. And
הפרצוף הזה נגמר, אז עולים
because this Partzuf was concluded, various Reshimot come up from it
לראש דסק,
to Rosh of Sag. And there are two Reshimot that come up here. There's Reshimo Bet Aleph, second restriction,
וישיבו של ד'
and Reshimo of Dalet Gimel.
זהו, יש שתי סוגי רשימות.
There's two kinds of Reshimot.
על רשימו ב' א' צמצום ב' יוצא לנו
On Reshimo Bet Aleph, second restriction, we get
כאן יוצא לנו על שתי הרשימות הללו,
on these two Reshimot,
על רשימו בית א',
On Bet Aleph,
עולם,
we get the world of Nikudim in Katnut.
ג',
And Rishimot Dalet Gimel, we get the world of Nikudim in Gadlut.
שעליהם אנחנו נמשיך עוד מעט.
And we're going to continue with those soon. Thus far, is everything clear?